So do preferred stocks have a place in your dividend income portfolio? If yes, are you going to own individual preferred stocks or are you going to own a preferred stock ETF? And of all the preferred stock ETFs out there, and there are a lot of them, which one is the best one for your portfolio? What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Average Joe Investor channel. My name is Joe, and in this video we are doing a deep dive into preferred stocks, preferred stock ETFs, and really going comprehensive with the top preferred stock ETFs and how they've performed in the past. In this video, which we're actually going to split into two separate videos to go out on consecutive days, but we're going to cover in its entirety everything you need to know about preferred stocks, including some of the elements of what makes up preferred stock, how preferred stocks are a little bit like bonds, but also a little bit like stocks, and then we're going to also take a deep dive into the 10 largest based on assets under management preferred stock ETFs in the United States. We're going to look at how they've performed in the past historically over two separate time periods based on trailing 12 months of dividends, their cumulative dividends, as well as their overall portfolio value. You guys know how much I geek out with spreadsheets, and there's going to be a spreadsheet for this video. I love talking about this stuff. Hopefully you like it as well. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let's get started. Hey guys, Joe here. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button below the video to make sure you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you do click that subscribe button, make sure to leave me a comment below saying you subscribed, and I promise to personally respond to your comment. Alright, you guys know how much I never want to waste your time, and I want to deliver massive value with every video I make, so let's jump right into the content. First thing we're talking about here is what exactly is preferred stock. This might be the very first time you're hearing of what preferred stock actually is, because you think about companies out there, dividend stocks like Procter & Gamble, Verizon, Altria, all these different companies, these aren't generally known as common stock. We don't call it common stock, but that's what it is. Common stock, it's a form of ownership in a company. But there's a second type that there's also out there, and that's known as preferred stock. You can see right here from Investopedia.com, what is preferred stock? It is ownership or equity in a firm. However, there are two types of equity, like we mentioned, common stock and preferred stock. Common stock and preferred stock are both ownership in a company, but they operate completely differently. So let's talk a little bit about the differences between common stock and preferred stock. First off, when it comes to dividends and asset distribution in case of, let's say, bankruptcy, preferred stock is different than common stock because preferred stock has a higher claim to dividends and asset distribution. So in the event of a bankruptcy and a company goes under, there's a pecking order, for lack of a better term, with respect to where the assets go to make investors as whole as possible. Bondholders are right there at the top, followed by preferred shareholders and then common stock. Another thing about preferred stock, you usually have no or very limited voting rights when it comes to corporate governance. You guys know that every year in the mail, you get tons of mail regarding the company's annual meeting and voting on certain things and voting by proxy, all that stuff. That's not relevant to you as a preferred stockholder. You don't have voting rights. Now, eventually, if you choose to own preferred stock, you have to make a decision on whether you want to own individual preferred shares of stock or if you'd prefer to own just a preferred shares ETF. There are some unique elements to owning individual preferred shares, but then again, we have to talk about diversification. You really need to diversify rather than just owning one preferred stock for one company. There are elements to preferred shares such as callability and convertibility. If a share is callable, it means that the issuer, that's the company, can purchase them back at par value. Oh, let's stop there. What's par value? That is the price at which generally most preferred shares are issued, and they really trade right around that same value. Par value is generally $25 a share. So if you want to buy shares of General Electric or for their preferred share, if you want to own Bank of America, Chase, whatever it is, generally their preferred shares are purchased at $25, their par value. Point of this video though is to talk more about preferred ETFs, preferred stock ETFs. One of the things that's very common with preferred shares is you get a higher dividend yield than you would have with the common stock. Not always the case, but it's generally the case. So the key reasons why we might want to invest in preferred stock ETFs, right? Having that diversification of having an ETF that owns lots of different preferred shares is the dividend yield, right? You're not gonna have a lot of volatility in the price of these preferred stocks or these preferred stock ETFs, but you get a higher dividend yield. And with the preferred stock ETF, you can reinvest those dividends for more shares and really build up a lot of cash flow. So with that said, let's go ahead and dive into here the top 10 based on assets under management, the top 10 preferred stock ETFs out there. We're gonna understand what those elements are, what their dividend yield is, expense ratio, underlying assets that are in the ETF, everything you need to know. All right, so here are the 10 different preferred stock ETFs that are the largest based on their assets under management, how much people have invested in these ETFs. We've got one as old as December of 2006 and one as new as May of 2018. We can see here we have a range on the expense ratio as well. We've got expense ratios as high as 1.47% for Virtus InfraCap right here, 1.47%, which is significant, I will admit. And we've got as low as the Global X US Preferred ETF, PFFD, at 0.23%. All right, first off, we've got the Invesco Financial Preferred ETF, ticker symbol PGF. All the links for all these ETFs will be in the description below. So this one is interesting. This is a preferred ETF, and I'm just gonna stop right here really quick and I should have mentioned it earlier. Generally, when we talk about preferred stock, the majority of preferred stock, not all of it, but most of it is issued by financial companies. You do have some with materials and energy and other companies, and we'll see how that breaks down based on industry, but it's generally already a lot consolidated in financials. So when we see one here that's all financials, well, that's not that big of a deal, but it is solely based on one industry, which is something you may be concerned about. So as it says right here, this ETF is based on the ICE Exchange listed fixed rate financial preferred securities index, and they will invest at least 90% of their assets into fixed rate US dollar preferred securities issued at the US domestic market, blah, 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 by financial companies. We can see here that the most recent price was $19.09 per share. And we scroll down here, we can see that their yield distribution rate is 4.54%, and it distributes every single month. Here's the breakdown of the expense ratio down here. It was created in December of 2006. Scrolling down further, 108 different holdings. We're gonna break down the holdings here in just a second. You can see that based on the net asset value right here, that the year-to-date return is 2.22%, 1-year return is 7.51%, 3-year return 6.75%, 5-year return 5.19%, and 10-year return 6.83%. We can see here the top fixed income holdings in this specific ETF. We've got Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, PNC Financial, Capital One, Bank of America, Allstate, Wells Fargo, US Bank, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, lots of different preferred stock ETFs. And you can see here, we've got the breakdown on shares based on par value, their coupon rate or the rate at which they pay dividends, the effective date, the next call date, if the preferred stock could be called away, and they're waiting over here. So really balanced with this ETF, lots of different holdings, 108 to be exact, and no significantly high weightings in any one preferred stock. Next up here, we've got the iShares Preferred and Income Securities ETF, PFF. You can see net assets here, 20.44 billion. You can see this ETF is very diversified, 508 different holdings. You can see for PFF right here, opened March of 2007, expense ratio is 0.46%, price per share currently $39.42 per share, and current dividend yield 4.40%. Here are those holdings right here. Top holding is actually Broadcom, which is actually an individual dividend stock I have in my portfolio. This would be their preferred stock though, it makes up 2.57% of the portfolio. You've got Wells Fargo, Bank of America, I'm not sure how you say that, Danaher Corporation, ArcelorMittal, never heard of these companies. NextEra, which is a company that I previously owned in my portfolio, Citigroup, Avantar, NextEra, and there are, like I said, 510 different holdings. Not any one makes up more than 2.5%, most of them around 1% or less. Next up, we have the Invesco Preferred ETF, PGX. For this one right here, you can see that it was opened in January 2008, has an expense ratio of 0.52%. It's got a price per share of $15.21. And then we've got assets under management of $7.5 billion and a current dividend yield of 5.27%. Here's the sector breakdown on this one here. This is nice to see. We've got financials, like I said, making up a lot of it, 66%, utilities at 11%, real estate at 8.3%, communications 6.7%, consumer discretionary, energy, industrials, investment companies, and materials. Current yield, 4.79% based on the current distribution rate, excuse me. We've got allocations here based on their Moody's bond ratings. We come down here to top fixed income holdings. Top result here is Citigroup. We've also got Chase, Wells Fargo, even further. If we pull up the entire holdings here, we can see quite a bit of different ones here. We've got Capital One, Corporate Retail. Way down here, other companies, Energy Transfer, First Republic, Pitney Bowes. Next, we've got the State Street or SPDR ICE Preferred Securities ETF, PSK. Expense ratio here, 0.45%. One of the things about this one here is it says that it seeks to provide exposure to preferred securities that are non-convertible, have a par amount of $25, and maintain a minimum par value of $250 million. This fund has 156 different holdings, current yield 5.25%. You can see top holding here is Citigroup. We've also got PNC, AT&T, Allstate Corporation, US Bank, Capital One, etc. This one is broken down 69% financials, 13.11% utilities, 7% real estate, 4.5% communication services, and then a little bit in finance and energy. Next up, the Global X Super Income Preferred ETF, SPFF. This one's very straightforward. It invests in 50 of the highest yielding preferred stocks in North America. Now, what I found is a trend, and not necessarily with everything from Global X, but I found it in many of their holdings. Oftentimes, they will give you high yields and they will sacrifice a little bit of capital along the way based on their underlying investments. So we'll see if that plays out here in this video as well. All right, SPFF right here, created in July of 2012. It's got an expense ratio of 0.58%. Current price is $12.04 per share, and it's got a dividend yield of 5.56%, which is really good. This one pays monthly as well, and current yield based on the trailing 12 months, 5.76%. You can see the top holdings right here: Ally Bank, Avgo, BDX, PNC, US Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, all these companies down here. Top holding is 5.96% of the portfolio, and then, like I said, there are 50 different holdings, the top 50 highest yielding. Next up, the Van Eck Preferred Securities X Financials ETF, PFXF, which is interesting because I just mentioned to you that most of preferred stocks out there are coming from financial companies. So if this one is going X Financials, that might be an interesting way to diversify your portfolio. It says right here, seeks to replicate as closely as possible before fees and expenses the price and yield of the ICE exchange listed blah, 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 preferred securities from non-financial companies. It was created in July of 2012. It's got a monthly distribution frequency right here and an expense ratio of 0.4%. 128 different holdings in here. You can see here the top holdings here are with Broadcom, NextEra Energy, NextEra again, Southern Co, AT&T, PG&E. Current yield 4.5%, as you can see right here. Price per share $21.67. Next up here, the First Trust Preferred Securities and Income ETF, FPE. This is an actively managed exchange traded fund ETF. Fund's investment objective is to seek total return and provide current income. Under normal market conditions, the fund invests at least 80% of its net assets, including investment borrowings, in preferred securities and income-producing debt securities, including corporate bonds, high-yield securities, and convertible securities. Price per share, $20.64, actually $20.69. That's the net asset value. Here's the price. 301 different holdings in this ETF. Top holdings down here: Barclays, Wells Fargo on this list, JP Morgan Chase, Credit Suisse. 54% in the United States, 8% in the UK, Canada makes up 7%, Bermuda makes up 5.69%, and dividend yield right here, 4.12%. Next up, another one from Global X, the US Preferred ETF, PFFD. It invests in a broad basket of US preferred stocks, providing benchmark-like exposure to the asset class. This is another one for Global X that pays monthly distributions right here. Current market price, $26.22 per share. Scrolling down even further, top holdings, 3.51% with Avgo, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, DHR, NEE. We've got Wells Fargo again, JP Morgan Chase. Again, this is a little bit newer right here. This one was launched in September of 2017. It's got a dividend yield of 4.99%. And an expense ratio of 0.23%, which is pretty low compared to most of the ETFs on this list. Two more to go here. Virtus Investment Partners, the Virtus InfraCap US Preferred Stock ETF. So this one says the fund seeks current income and secondarily capital appreciation through a portfolio of preferred securities issued by US companies with market caps of over $100 million. You can see some of the top holdings right here: 4.93% in the RLJ Lodging Trust, American Finance Trust, DCP Midstream, South Jersey Industries, Digital Bridge, Dominion Energy, Southern Co., etc. This one has a hefty expense ratio of 1.47%. We're gonna see if that impacts how well this company does against the others. Distribution rate here, though, is higher. 7.57%. We'll see, like I said, if it makes a difference. And it says here that it pays monthly dividends right here, you can see. And lastly here, the principal Spectrum Preferred Securities Active ETF, PREF. And it says right here, this investment is very straightforward. It seeks to provide current income. Under normal circumstances, the fund invests at least 80% of its net assets plus any borrowings for investment purposes in preferred securities at the time of the purchase. 80 different holdings in this specific ETF. You can see the top holdings here: Bank of New York Mellon, Dominion Energy, Wells Fargo, Duke Energy, Citigroup, TransCanada Trust Company, HSBC, etc. So these are the 10 different ETFs on our list, guys. These are the ones we're gonna really deep dive, and we're gonna look at how they actually performed in the past based on 2 different time periods. We're gonna look at the dividends, the actual portfolio value, reinvesting, not reinvesting dividends, but because of the length of the video, we're cutting it into 2. Be on the lookout for the next part of this video tomorrow. For the sake of you guys, I didn't wanna overload your brains. We kind of overview the preferred stock and what the different preferred ETFs were, at least the top ones right now in the United States. And then in the next video tomorrow, we're gonna deep dive how they actually performed, looking at 4 different investing strategies in 2 different time frames as customary on this channel with a spreadsheet that I created. And we'll see which of these come out on top, guys. I'm actually really considering putting a preferred ETF in my portfolio. It won't have a significant weighting, but it's gonna really determine how these results come out and which one makes the most sense given the makeup of my entire portfolio. Hopefully you found some value out of this first part of the video, guys. Leave your 2 cents in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe so that makes sure that you catch the next video tomorrow and are alerted when that one comes out. That's all I got for you guys. Have a great rest of your day, and please continue to stay healthy, both physically and financially. Catch you tomorrow.